the stupidest or worst thing you've ever done? Now, if that sounds familiar, it should, because that's one of the questions we asked during our Soul Speak last night. While you think about it, let me tell you of the stupidest thing I've ever done. So if you don't know, I'm homeschooled. It's a lot different than public school, obviously, but I still do a lot of things that the public school kids do. But when I was 12 or 13, I skipped math class for about a month. But I know I would never get away with that in public school, but I did it nonetheless. But skipping class, that wasn't the worst part. It was the constant lying. I lied for about a month straight, which is not easy. But when my mom found out, to say she was angry was an understatement. I got in trouble, and I asked for her forgiveness, and I eventually received it. But this morning, I want to tell you the story of a king who did a lot of stupid, and not only bad, but evil things. He ruined the kingdom of Judah like many of his predecessors. He brought them back to where they were not meant to be, and ruined all of the work that his father had done to bring Judah out of the idolatrous state that it was in. Hezekiah had worked so long to get Judah into this godly state, only to have it come crashing down around his ears by his own son. Today, we will explore the life of King Manasseh and see the evil that he did and how he turned around and lived a better life for God. So, without further ado, let's turn to 2 Chronicles chapter 33, starting in verse 1. It reads, Manasseh was 12 years old when he became king, and he reigned 55 years in Jerusalem. But he did evil in the sight of the Lord, according to the abominations of the nations whom the Lord had cast out before the children of Israel. For he rebuilt the high places which Hezekiah his father had broken down. He raised altars for the Baals, and made wooden images, and he worshipped all the hosts of heaven, and served them. He also built altars in the house of the Lord, of which the Lord had said, In Jerusalem my name shall be forever. And he built altars for all the hosts of heaven in the two courts of the house of the Lord. Now this next passage, verse 6, hits a little bit hard on me because it talks about the horrible practice of child sacrifice. And I actually have a baby brother who is 2 years old. But verse 6 reads, Also he caused his sons to pass through the fire in the valley of the son of Hinnom. He practiced soothsaying, used witchcraft and sorcery, and consulted mediums and spiritists. He did much evil in the sight of the Lord to provoke him to anger. If this doesn't show you how evil he and the people around him were, I don't know what will. To take a child, an infant who cannot defend itself, and mercilessly kill it for worship is such a vile and disgusting thing to do. We don't have an exact age, but we know that they most likely sacrifice children as young as 1 year old. Usually there's a furnace either to the side or below the idol. They then would chant or worship Baal, Molech, Asherah, and more, while the child was burning alive. They sacrificed a child who has not lived its life yet. And in this case for Manasseh, he sacrificed his own son, to these false gods. And he let him die for a worship which he knew was wrong. But the sad truth is, it was common for a lot of these kings to worship Asherah and Baal. He also participated in witchcraft, which is illegal in Mosaic law. He also, as the verse says, visited mediums and spiritists, which was wrong because, as we know, I didn't list the verse here, but Saul visited one and contacted the spirit of Samuel. And he said, "Why do you disturb me?" Which is Samuel basically saying, "Why did you do this?" But then in the last part of verse 6, we see how he provoked the Lord to anger. Now, personally, I've seen a lot of people get angry. I've seen my dad, my mom, and my siblings get angry. But I can't imagine getting the creator of our very existence and someone who could take me out of this life with just the littlest of motion angry. But it can't get any worse than that, right? Right? Well, I have some bad news for you. It did. He took an idol, the very thing that God said not to have, as we see in the first and second commandments, which say, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me, and you shall not make for yourself an idol or worship any other gods." But if having an idol was an insult, putting it in the house of the Lord was the highest insult. It is the place where God said in verses 7 and 8, "In this house and in Jerusalem, which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel, I will put my name forever. And I will not again remove the foot of Israel from the land which I have appointed for your fathers, only if they are careful to do all that I have commanded them, according to the whole law and the statutes and the ordinances by the hand of Moses." But it's after this that we see how the Lord spoke to them and how they chose not to listen. And just like all of the evil generations before them, they turned their backs to God and did what was right in their own eyes. In verse 11 of 2 Chronicles 33, we can see how the Assyrians took Manasseh away from the southern kingdom. We do have evidence that the Assyrians treated their captives this way. They put nose hooks in their captives and treated them like a dog. The verse says they put it in his nose, but there are a couple of other places where they might have put him, such as the mouth, like somewhere in here, or your lip. They also tied Manasseh in bronze fetters as to restrict his movement so he wouldn't escape. This chapter doesn't mention how long he was in Babylon for, but we know that it was long enough for him to realize the error of his ways. He asked God for forgiveness, and God, being the almighty, merciful, and loving God that he is, gave it to him. God returned him to Jerusalem, and he started to repair all of the damage that he had inflicted on the nation of Judah. He started to rebuild and fortify all of the cities of the southern kingdom. He tore down all of the idols which he put up and rebuilt the altar of the Lord and sacrificed peace and thanksgiving offerings. As I close, I just want to point a couple things out. This narrative serves as a powerful reminder for redemption and transformation. Do you remember how in the beginning I asked you in the beginning what the worst thing you ever did was? Well, King Manasseh's story stands as a testament that no matter how great or how horrible the thing you did may be, there is always an opportunity for repentance, for restoration, and a chance to live a better life, guided by God's grace. It is a powerful reminder that our past actions do not define our future. And with genuine remorse and a desire to change, we can experience true transformation and start to move forward on the path of righteousness that Jesus set before us.